Welcome to Beyond the Syllabus, where we talk with superintendents, curriculum leaders, and education innovators who are rethinking what school can be and how it can better serve the academic and personal needs of every learner. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Syllabus. Today, I'm honored to have with me Trish Sexton from Lancaster County School District in South Carolina. She's the Chief Academic Officer. And Trish, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited for our conversation today. Before we kind of get into any nitty-gritty of anything, tell us about your background. How did you end up as a chief academic officer there? Why education in the first place?
So I am in my 31st year of education. Yes. And my mom was an elementary music teacher. I was a product of a Navy family, so moved around quite a bit, went to 8 different schools.
Wow.
Even lived in Japan when I was younger for
Wow.
like my third through fifth grade. And so I had a model, my mom as a teacher, but always just loved teaching others. And how I ended up in this role, I mean, I after I graduated from college, I went to William and Mary. My mom was actually teacher of the year. This is kind of fun story. In her district, my dad was on deployment. I was trying to find my first teaching job. She invited me to a banquet and I didn't have a job yet. And so she was introducing me to people at the banquet and they said, "We have connections in Charlotte. We're going to call down there." And within a week, I kid you not, I had a sixth grade teaching position, took my parents' Camry, moved down. My mom likes to say I stole a raincoat, some money in her Camry, and didn't know anyone. Got my first apartment, taught for 6 years. Then I loved the coaching aspect of as the new teacher, they have you doing all the things. But
Mhm.
I ended up like just really wanting to go back and get my master. So I went through principal fellows and I owed North Carolina 4 years of service. But I became an administrator, assistant principal in an elementary Title I school. Then I was a principal coach. I retired from Charlotte Mecklenburg schools with 30 years of service.
Wow.
And so I just finished my first year up actually in Lancaster as the chief academic officer, but I've had school-based work, district office work, coaching and supporting. My passion really is a love of all things instruction and coaching others.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I really appreciate that background. There's a lot to dive into there. First of all, those few years in Japan, what
Yes.
was that like? Was your mom a teacher there as well at the school or?
She was a music teacher. Yes, she was actually my music teacher on a military base in
Oh my
Atsugi,
God.
Japan. So she was there with us. And my dad was on like 6 month deployment. So she's raising 3 girls under the age
Wow.
of 10 in a foreign country. But it was amazing. I can't wait to go back. I wanna go back at some point.
Yeah, Japan is definitely near the top of my list. That's so cool. So, all these different schools, all these different experiences, environments, what was school like for you? Like, when you think back on your K-12 experience, what are the emotions associated with that?
People don't believe me now, but I was the shyest student. I was that
Really?
student that please don't call on me, let me just blend in. Um, and until I went to college, my parents like to tease me about this. I took a semester abroad in the south of France. They're like, "You came back a different person, Tris. Like you came out of your shell." But yeah, I liked school, but I was probably a little bit of an anxious, nervous wreck during school. I was that kid that just wanted to do well, but didn't want any attention on them at
Mhm.
all. So that totally, I appeal to that type of child who don't put
Yeah,
me in the spotlight, don't cold call me, let me learn, but it has to feel safe, right? So my
100%.
teachers that created that safe learning environment were my favorite ones. If I
Yeah.
felt like I was going to be under the gun or under pressure, and I couldn't, feel comfortable, that was a problem.
100%. Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of kids experience, especially at a young age, right? This shyness rooted in anxiety, rooted in this desire to just do well according to what the system says doing well is,
Yeah.
right? And it's amazing in a negative way how much pressure is on young students,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you're there to learn and be curious and socialize, but all of these external factors are kind of just pressing down on you.
Mhm.
So that's really, really interesting. I appreciate you sharing that. How do you think that that has either changed or not changed in education today based on students that you've worked with and see?
I think you're spot on, actually. I do think well, I would like to say we are prioritizing, just that whole child first, but
Mhm.
academic identity for a student really starts early.
Yeah.
And I think this whole emphasis on like a test score. They're more
Mhm.
than test scores, right?
Yep.
And just with my own, I'm a mom of 3 girls. So I've in every role I've led, as a building level principal, my daughter went to school with me. She started as a kindergartner. I was a first day as a first year principal. And so I always had that mom hat on. And, when my own children are coming home and they didn't get in the Great Talented Club, which was called GT at the time, I said, honey, it's not the Great Talented Club. You are all talented. But
Yeah.
I watched my own kids start to have this identity, in first and second grade. And
Mhm.
I think that it is just so important that we don't start labeling kids
Yeah.
at all, period,
Yeah.
but that we create the conditions where when they are young, they are curious, they're excited about learning, and they feel smart. And they all have different gifts and talents. But I will say, being a parent myself, I think that has really helped shape the educator that I am because all 3 of my children are very different. But,
Yeah.
so you asked, I do think we do have some outside pressures, to be that label, to get that grade.
Mhm.
Um, but at the end of the day, it's my desire and what I'm pushing here in our district is that we're teaching that whole child and everyone has gifts and talents and we want them all to be on a successful path whether it's college, career, military service, but that they start getting that opportunity knowledge of what's out there early on.
Yeah.
In elementary school, starting to expose themselves to all the different things they're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much gold there. That's amazing. The whole student, each student being different. There's a lot of good stuff there. I want to go into that part specifically, right? You have 3 children, each of which are completely different people, completely different learners. How, as a mom and an educator, have you adapted your support for them?
Yeah, I mean, I really would say it's been pretty personalized. I have actually not only are they really pretty good students, but they're student athletes too. So I have 2
Nice.
right now playing college soccer at Furman.
Wow.
And I have my 3rd child as a senior in high school. And, I think how I've had to just adapt based on first, like who they are as people,
Yeah.
right? And just because one, it's Emma, Sarah, Lizzie, and I think we could have our own reality show if I'm being honest. There's a lot going on in the Sexton house all the time, but
I love it.
I think it's just getting to know them as individuals. And I was never that parent. I was probably that parent that teachers were like, oh, does she read the newsletters? Because when my middle daughter came home one day and she told me she pulled her color strip for breaking a rule, I actually celebrated. And you're gonna say, "Trish, why'd you do that?" Because she was had all this pressure on herself to be
Yeah.
perfect, and I was like, "No, we all make mistakes, we learn from
Yeah.
them. So you pulled it from the green to the blue, it's gonna be okay. What'd you
Yeah.
learn from that? Don't talk when she's talking, we're gonna be okay," right? But
Yeah.
just sort of having those conversations, talking it out, not making things bigger than they need to be, and also recalling what my experiences had been as a child, not wanting them to have to try to navigate all that anxious thoughts and feelings. Like, how do you make yourself comfortable in an environment when you're not comfortable, right?
A
How do
hundred
you
percent.
so so yeah, I think it's just trial and error, like just trying to figure out who they are as people. And, my oldest now will say, Mom, you're far easier on the younger one. I said, because I'm fire.
That's what my siblings say about me.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Well,
funny.
but yes, I think you just have to personalize it to who they are as people.
Yeah, and I think you're speaking my language right now. I'm like giddy. This is amazing. The personalization, but not just from an academic standpoint, right? All of that stuff is important, but this holistic approach of understanding a student as an actual human being, right?
Yes.
Not just a figure as a student in a seat in a classroom, right? Understanding their interests, understanding their personality. I always give the analogy of like on our basketball team in high school, there were players who, if our coach got in their face and yelled at them, they'd completely shut down and
That's right.
not want to come back. Or there were players who, if coach got in your face and yelled at you, you're like, all right, let me get right here.
That's
Right.
right.
And that's so common throughout sports, as like a coach understanding their player. I think the difference is teachers aren't always given the space, the time, and the bandwidth
Mhm.
to do that,
Right.
right? Not to say teachers don't know their students, because I think most know their students pretty
Mhm.
well, but there's not that space allowed for, like, let me really get to know you to the extent where I can coach you, not
Right.
just teach you,
Right.
right? So I completely agree on that. And talking about personalization, how is that something that you have embedded not just with your kids, but as an educator throughout your teaching career and now at Lancaster?
So, I think one of the things we're really just pushing is children are leaders. They have this
Mm,
innate leadership ability. And I'm really proud that we have a great partnership with Leader in Me. So we have, I believe it's 6 schools that are going to be Leader in Me schools this year coming into our district with Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? So teaching
nice.
children those win-win strategies and
Yep.
assume good intent and all the things. So I will just say the very first thing that we are really is part of our 3 priorities is social and emotional well-being of
Mhm.
of both the children in the building and the teachers. I think
Yeah.
n- both are equally as important, right? So it's that relational. Do we have the right systems and processes in that school where students come expecting to be received and part of the team, and do teachers feel that way too, because that
Mhm.
matters. As you were just talking, I was thinking about my own youngest child in about 30 seconds can size up whether the teacher cares about her or not and the
100%.
kind of effort she's going to put into the year, right?
Yep.
And just having to coach teachers sometimes from the mom hat of, so I think it's hard for me to navigate from just being chief academic officer and not Trish as the mom, because they all
Yeah.
come together, right? Because I lead like I parent,
Mhm.
and I want everyone's kids to have the same experiences my kids get to have. But we are trying to start with every school has a culture.
Yeah.
And one of the trainings I've been afforded lots of leadership trainings, but one is like, as goes the leader, so goes the culture. So it is
Mm,
mission critical we have the right leadership in every building.
I
We have
love
the
that.
and what I hire for always is belief in people and kids first.
Yeah.
I can teach you how to teach. I can't teach you how to believe in others and have high expectations for what they can do. But so I think it just starts with creating the culture in the
Mhm.
building first that is safe and inclusive. And I was thinking about, it's a lot of the counseling aspects, it's a lot of
Yeah.
the mental health of just, children knowing they have an outlet and they have a champion. Every child deserves that champion in the building. So creating those conditions,
Yep.
I think that's where it starts.
100%. I love that. And I love your emphasis. You've mentioned it now maybe 3 or 4 times, this idea of comfort and safety, and being seen from a student perspective, right? It's so easy to check out or to disengage as a student in the back of the classroom when you feel or know like your teacher doesn't care, or when you feel or know like what you're being taught, you don't understand the importance, right? That's my founding story, why I founded my company. And I always stem it back to my experience as a student. And I always say I never understood the real world purpose of why we were doing what we were doing. Right. And so that was like, I was uncomfortable. Right. Like,
Yes.
why am I here then? And that definitely comes from all the way from someone up top at your level, all the way down to teachers. And then that influences the students. And I love that saying that you use, as goes the leader, so goes the culture. I'm going to
Mhm.
use that one for sure. Can you talk more about how you mentioned culture is like a huge thing, right? Culture in
Mhm.
every building, culture in every room. How, as a leader, how, as chief academic officer, are you building that culture and making sure that that gets all the way from you down?
Yeah, great question. I think the other like tagline I will use is you learn the work by doing the work.
Hmm.
So someone in my position cannot ever forget what it's like to be that teacher.
Yeah.
And I also think it's me, because even it's just a title. I'm just Trish. I'm a teacher of others in this district. My
Yeah.
it is like the work of how do I help influence and support and help, and I am very responsible for driving that culture. But I will tell you, one of my favorite ways to do it is being out in the schools, and
Hmm.
not just being out in the schools from a pass fail inspection. I hate that. I hate the judgments we put when we walk in, because I
Yep.
remember being that building leader that had district folks coming in, and I was so
Mhm.
worried about, oh my gosh, what judgments, what are they going to think? And it's not pass fail. It
Yeah.
is, how do you help create the conditions together? So one of
Yep.
the best strategies I can give you, that I've now see this work as a in two different districts and as a building leader, is they're called learning walks. So going out into classrooms and doing walks with not just the coaches, but this past year we engaged teachers to come and be part of the walks. And what we're
Nice.
going in and doing is, we're not really looking so much at the teacher, we're looking at what kids have access to. Do
Mhm.
they have access to the standards aligned instruction? Do they have access to high quality resources? And are kids doing the lift?
Yeah.
Are the students the one doing the productive struggle and the thinking? I will say, the resources now that teachers have, I wish I had them when I was
Yeah.
teaching many moons ago, because I was trying to find all the things, right? And I'll never forget one of my first experiences as a brand new teacher, where the my mentor, I said, well, what am I supposed to teach? She said, Trish, here are the standards, go do it. Like, and it was not helpful, it was
Yeah.
not supportive. Back
Yeah.
to that safety, we need to have. So the other strategy is professional learning communities, and I don't want that just to be a buzzword. That is really where we are working together as a team. Teachers all have strengths, and leveraging that collective, right? The highest effective student achievement is collective teacher efficacy, that they
Mhm.
believe they can make a difference and they're working together. So
Yeah.
it's this whole idea of a learning walk is to get away from this pass fail culture. But, if you think about this model of coaching, lots of people have coaches. Athletes have coaches, executives have coaches. So creating this, doctors do instruct like rounds where they're coaching each other. So making education that profession too, that we're constantly
Yeah.
learning the work by doing the work, and in a coaching culture. And just because I'm the chief academic officer doesn't mean I know all the things. So I can learn from a first year teacher just as easily as I can learn from a veteran principal. So when
Yep.
you're in these walks, what I love the most about them is you're watching what kids are doing. You're looking at patterns and trends across rooms, and you're celebrating what's going well, but then
Yeah.
you're also pushing on, where can we push a little more so that we have higher engagement for
Yep.
kids, so
Yep.
that we have kids getting. And my very first, like, the equity champion that I am, is all kids deserve access. It
Yeah.
does not matter where you grow up, you all deserve access to a high quality. And the great thing about these curriculums now is they are really great resources, where we're
Yeah.
helping kids build knowledge. So I could just go all day and tell you about these learning walks, but I think that is part of how I'm helping to shape the culture. Is, I think,
Mhm.
when you see district office out there, in where we're walking together, we're having conversations, and it's not just coming to judge, it's
Yeah.
coming to support. And I will tell you, it takes a shift, because if people aren't accustomed to people being in their classrooms and
Mhm.
opening up practice, at first the natural inclination is, oh, um, why are they watching me? But I think,
Yeah.
again, it goes back to leadership. Leadership being visible in schools, being in the work, rolling up your
Mhm.
sleeves, talking about, and just this approach of how not the hard or the easy no, but how can we get to that yes? What do you
Yeah.
need to help support and reach kids?
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I love those learning walks. And you made me think of a clip I just saw of Steve Jobs recently, which with the whole pass fail thing, it's not pass fail, right? And
Mm-mm.
he was in a college classroom and a student asked him, "What is the most important thing you learned at Apple that you took to kind of your next phase?" And he paused for 19 seconds. It was one of those like really long awkward pauses. And he goes, I don't know if I exactly learned this at Apple, but I learned it from the data from when I was at Apple. And the biggest shift in my behavior as a leader was I started looking at people long term, right? When you look at someone as, hey, how are you going to provide value in the next year? That's a lot different. You act a lot differently towards them than if you ask, how are you going to provide value over the next decade? And so
Mm.
what he said, what he started doing is if a person was making a mistake, his natural inclination was to go fix it. But this new long-term approach he took was not to go fix it, but to go teach and coach them so that they wouldn't make those mistakes again and they could grow and become more valuable over time.
That's right.
Right. And so I think that's similar to that pass fail idea, right? You're not going into a classroom to pass or fail a teacher and say you did good or you did bad. You're going in to celebrate, like you said, the things that are going well and to coach and teach with them on the things that they need to maybe push a little differently on.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's such an amazing framework there. That's really cool. So, talking about these learning walks, talking about what kids have access to, and talking about equity for all, right? What does that look like in Lancaster as far as technology goes? How would you describe Lancaster as far as AI innovation? Where are you on that adoption curve?
Yeah, I think we still have some work to do there. I really do. I think we're still kind of on the beginning stages of that.
Mhm.
I believe we learned a lot about technology during the pandemic and what we
100%.
what we wanted it to be and what we didn't want it to be, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I think we're now at a place where we're shifting back to I'd much rather see a lot of what's missing is kids having conversations, right?
Yeah.
So I'd much rather walk in a classroom and see kids collaborating, building off of ideas. We just adopted a new math curriculum, and I will tell you one of the most promising things about it is there's a lot of opportunities for kids to share their representations, their
Nice.
thinking, because they're going to learn from one another, right? Instead of
Yeah.
sitting on a computer that they're and the technology is fabulous. Like
Yeah.
I can get on there, you can assess me, and then you can put me on a pathway that is either going to push me further or remediate where I need, right? And um I love that aspect of it, but I think it has a place. I think it is I don't want to walk in a room and for 45 minutes see a kid on a computer.
For
I want
sure.
that to be part of a learning station or part of we have so in the high schools, we are leveraging a technology platform where instead of waiting for kids to fail, they actually have tutorials that are awesome with technology that they can get like a little clip of what they need. And just thinking back to my math example, the conceptual side of it. So you started
Mhm.
with like, why am I learning this? And I remember
Right.
sitting in class like, I am not going to remember all this. And now with technology, I don't need to know all that. I
Right.
can Google it real quick. I can chat GPT something,
Yeah.
but um, but I do think it's that, just having kids that balance of what tools is going to help support you, but then how do you have like real conversations with people and learn from one another.
Yeah.
They're going to learn far more than a teacher putting them on a technology platform or standing up and lecturing at them. So
100%. 100%. And that collaborative nature, I feel like, is missing in a lot of buildings, a lot of classrooms, whether it's technology kind of being overloaded onto students or into the schedule, or if it's just an effect from COVID. But I completely agree. Like students learn from each other.
they do. And one of the things I wanted to mention, just about this platform is what I do where we do need to leverage technology instead of waiting for kids to fail and then putting them on like credit recovery platforms.
Hmm.
There are some fabulous technology now that you put them on. They learn that conceptual side of it. It starts to click. You're building their schema. You're building like the why. So then it's
Hmm.
meaningful to them and you're
Yep.
not waiting until the end of the semester and you're like, "Oh, she didn't pass that class. Now I need
Right.
to do credit recovery." So
Right.
what we're pushing here in Lancaster is really being proactive, right?
Yeah.
Identifying where the gaps are at the
Hmm.
start so that then we can put those just supports in those I like to
Yeah.
call them on ramps,
Yep.
not remediation, but just the on ramps. Like what
Yep.
on ramp does that child need in order to have access to it?
100%. And I think that's one thing that we're really stuck on right now is like you said, we don't want to wait till the end of the year to figure out and then put them through credit recovery or whatever needs to happen. But that's kind of the model right now with your typical like diagnostic in September, diagnostic in December, and then May or whatever the cadence is. But it's like, okay, yeah, it's great to get a feel of where everyone's at in September, but then what do you do with that data, number 1? And you don't get an update until December, and then or January, and then you don't get another update until May, right? So it doesn't allow for that proactiveness that you said. So I completely agree with that. I think, diagnostics should be a continuous practice and
That's right.
finding a way for technology to allow for that, I think is going to be really transformational for growth.
I agree. I agree. And they're just even from like my heart, and you're speaking my language now, because one of the things we had to look at in our system is we're over assessing kids.
Hmm.
So when do we actually teach them, right?
Yeah.
So we're over assessing and we're making judgments on one data point
Yeah.
that child just might have said, I'm just not in the mood today to take this
Right.
assessment, right?
Right.
So how do we triangulate the data? But you're going to learn the most every day watching the kids in the class
Right.
by those
Exactly.
formative assessments, the quick checks,
Hmm.
and you're also the other thing this just makes me think of one of our pushes too is kids understanding all the pathways they have accessible to them. And I'm really proud of the work in Lancaster, just the career paths, the CT pathways that students have opportunities to pursue. And, in the past, there might have been like this, oh, it's the Career Center. Oh, no,
Hmm.
you can get credentialed and go out with a very great level of wage afterwards. And
Cool.
what one of the things we're trying to do is give credit where credit's due with honors courses there too. So students
Yeah.
aren't playing this game of trying, oh, I can't take that thing I'm really interested in because it's going to tank my GPA because I'm not going to get the honors weighted for it.
Yeah.
Right. So really starting these pathways and conversations early on so that they know, if you want to go the route of plumbing, here's what you have access to. And guess what? You can get this credential and you can be a top honors AB IB student, AP, all of it, right? You can be well rounded. It doesn't have to be I just choose this.
100%. And that well-roundedness, and you mentioned it, maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, the exposure to a bunch of things, right? And helping kids understand, like, explore new things throughout their education experience. And then when it's time to go to college, when it's time to go into the workforce, when it's time to do whatever it's time for them to do, they have all these experiences. They have this feeling of optionality.
Right.
Right, they're not cornered into, like, one thing or worse, like, exposed into a world where, like, "Whoa, I've never seen any of this."
That's right.
Right? So that exposure is super, super important. Tell me more, what are some things that you're super, super excited about at Lancaster, things you're proud of, and what is kind of 1 or 2 things that you guys are maybe struggling with right now and have a lot of, emphasis and initiative towards?
So I think you probably could see my passion in these learning walks. I'm really
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
really really proud of that we're building a collaborative culture where
Yeah.
we're learning from one another in the district. We have the answers in this district. This what I'm also proud of in this district, this is such a community here. Many of the and I feel very privileged to be part of it because I did not grow up. I wasn't afforded many of the educators in Lancaster went to school in Lancaster, went away for college, and came back to Lancaster, or went to college at the community colleges here. So there is just this vested interest in this building this community. I love that. I love that about our career center is like no other I have ever seen. I'm very excited about we are ensuring that there are 4 high schools and they all have access to the Career Center. So ensuring that all kids have opportunities because our district is rather, we have inner city, but we also have rural areas. So there's a little bit of everything. So really back to that learning walk for just a minute, what we did is school teams went across county to different schools to see each other so that we could borrow, steal ideas and best practices. So I'm
That's cool.
excited about that. I am excited about the teachers in this district. These are some of the best teachers I have ever seen in the profession, and they have a heart and care about kids. I'm excited about the test results. It's all embargoed right now, but we are closing the gap. I can share this with you that um, our third grade, I'm sure if you've any time with science and reading and all the struggle there, we are closing that gap and kids are getting better access K-3 in this district
Nice.
so that they are becoming proficient readers by the time they leave second grade. So that
That's
excites
awesome.
me because that opens up, all kinds of opportunities for them.
100%.
I think I could go all day on all the initiatives I'm excited about. I think we are still our 3 priorities that we're working towards just
Mhm.
is that social emotional piece for students and staff and making sure that that is top priority, that the
Yeah.
safety, the culture matters in schools and is our priority. The second thing is really around access. Kids having access to what they deserve to have access to.
Yeah.
So grade level standards and It has worked in every type of school in this district when we gave better access to better resources and let kids own the lift. And so part of that learning walk is looking for, do kids have access? Are they owning the lift? What kind of questions are being asked to them?
Mhm.
Um, we see improvements in achievement. And
Yeah,
for our
that's
kids
awesome.
that maybe have more combined challenges, we see even higher improvements. So that
Yeah.
excites me because, yes, they just deserve that. And then, not that any of these, I will say the social emotional has to be the priority, but the third one, the other two are equally as important is teachers feeling empowered and
Mhm.
leading the work, not feeling, again, like I don't want kids to feel pass fail. I don't want leaders to feel pass fail. I don't want teachers to feel done to. I
Yeah.
don't want them to feel like, "All right, here, just go do, be a robot and do." No, that is not why we hired you. We
Yeah.
hired you because there is an art of teaching. But I think there's also, instead of you spending all your time trying to find all the resources,
Mhm.
helping you leverage, resources that we know can make a difference for kids, right? So
Yeah.
that has shifted in education since the time I was a teacher.
Mhm.
And it's not easy to navigate some of these complex resources. So giving teachers the space and the time to make it manageable.
Yeah.
And so that really, when you ask what are we still working on, those three priorities we're working on. We're working
Yeah.
on, and all of that to say building a culture in the district that is, one of the books we're leveraging this year is the speed of trust, where the community trust and the community is part of, and it's not separate. This is our community. These are our children. So
Mhm.
that's something we're working towards too. I'm with a new leadership team. We've all been in place just 1 year, and so my first mission is just to build relationships with
Yeah.
both the teachers, the staffs, and the community members. And so I personally am still working on that. But yes, that's that. Those are kind of our priorities right now.
That's amazing. Well,
Oh,
listen.
one
Oh,
more.
go ahead.
One more. I think the biggest too is celebrating what's going well and right. You
Mhm.
can it is like the other thing that it's just, you can find all the negative news on anything in education. You will
Yeah.
find what you're looking for. If you wanna look
Yep.
for negative, you're gonna find it, right? I am on a mission to celebrate educators and education and to showcase all what is going well and right. And we started this year, our theme this year is Boots Down, Unleashing Greatness, Unleashing Excellence. And we started and we talked about all the things that are going well and right. And we're going to continue to make an emphasis on that instead of defaulting to what isn't going well and right.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It seems like you guys have a really cool, strong community there, and, I gotta say, I'm pretty fired up about this, career center. I might have to come down for a
You
visit.
need to come see it.
I would love to if you'll have me. It sounds
I
like an
will.
exciting place. That's cool. Yeah, I've been, I'm very blessed to have seen a lot of different, like, campuses and different cool things that happen, at different districts, so I'm excited about that one. We'll definitely have to figure that out.
Yes.
So that's all amazing stuff. I mean, the social emotional well-being of students, of teachers, of staff, everyone, is so crucial because if you don't have happy leaders, if you don't have comfortable leaders, if you don't have all of the above, then what's going to happen to the people that they're leading,
That's right.
right? So I think that's a super important initiative, and glad to hear that you guys are thinking about that and working towards that. I want to talk about our dreams for a minute here. Okay. Let's put our creative dreaming caps on. Okay. Let's fall into a nice REM sleep here. When you think about education in 50 years, 100 years, what do you think? What do you see?
Mm. I mean, I just bringing back it as a profession that
Mhm.
people value and see that it is celebrated and honored, and that we are continuous improvement, right? We are leveraging the best tools so that we are developing the best, helping to support. It's not just ours to do, but helping to support that opportunity knowledge for all kids so they know
Yeah.
what exists, so they can lead productive lives, so that they can pour into their communities and they can create a better world. Honestly, I know that might sound a little hokey, but that's
No,
what I
I love
see.
it.
I see we are, we are spending our time developing better people together that have access. And and we value all types of learning. It's
Yeah.
not just, I struggle with this, the assessment piece, because I do think kids deserve to have access to the tools so that they can have opportunities. But I think
Yeah.
the emphasis sometimes becomes more about that, than it does about what you learn being in a school and being around others and the diversity of it, and how do you build community. I think some of those things we shortchange in our social studies units about community is
Mhm.
what my dream is, that we're building stronger communities that
Yeah.
work together in peace instead of just conflict or power.
Yeah. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think sometimes and this goes back to what we were talking about before with the time, the resources, the bandwidth. I think sometimes the really truly important things like community are overshadowed by the demands of the system,
Mhm,
right? The demand of, oh my God, it's state testing week
mhm,
or month or whatever. Oh my God, we have a diagnostic this week, right? That overshadows oftentimes when we sit down and have a conversation, what we agree is the most important aspect,
mhm.
right? So how can my dream is, how can we make education a system and a structure that is not just allowing for those things when there's time, but makes that time the priority
That's
and
right.
everything surrounds that,
That's right.
right? Um, yeah, wow, I'm inspired. This
Oh,
is great.
well, I'm inspired by you.
I appreciate that. Listen, as we wrap up here, how can your community in Lancaster support? Where can they find you? What are anything you wanna send out to them?
Yeah, so it's just Trish.Sexton on the email with all the long, I guess that's not the easiest way, but I'm pretty approachable and available. So they can go on our website and find me. Again, I just like to say I really am very privileged to get to serve in this role. I've been privileged to get to serve in education going in my 31st year. It's never been a job, and as I'm coaching my youngest daughter, who's a senior in high school, about go where your passion is,
Yeah,
and everything will fall into place, right? So, I think my hope for this district too is that we just continue to encourage students to go follow their passion, and we provide the right avenues to do that. And I'm in it to win it for kids and for this community. So, they can call the district office, they can reach me, but email is probably the best way to get a hold of me. I'm pretty quick on that.
I love it. Well, Trish, I really appreciate you joining us today. Loved our conversation, and yeah, Lancaster community, you're a lucky community to have Trish with you. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. Got an idea, a story, or a question about what we discussed today? We'd love to hear from you. To learn more about Unique Learn, follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube, and visit uniquelearn.co.